Everyone has their own favourite comfort show to watch in their free time. Shows like How I Met Your Mother, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, The Simpsons. People like to watch these shows to escape their mundane, boring and unfulfilling lives. But there's one show, a show so recognisable, so impactful to a generation, that it trumps all of these shows in terms of comfort. And that show is Family Guy. I mean, that show is Friends. Does this show even need an introduction? Well, I'll give a brief one anyway. Friends is an American sitcom that ran from September 22nd, 1994 to May 6th, 2004. It's centered around a group of friends living together in New York City, filled with 90s humor, charm, laugh tracks, and poorly aged rhetoric.
What kind of job is that for a man? A nanny?
This show defined the personalities of a lot of millennials, and quickly became a cult classic, with its series finale pulling an astonishing 52.5 million viewers. This is mostly due to the characters themselves, as general audiences could relate to their storylines, flaws, and eccentric personalities. The cast included Ross, the nerdy sweet guy, Monica, the OCD control freak, Phoebe, the wacky eccentric one, Rachel, the self-involved shopaholic, Chandler, the sarcastic straight man, and Joey, the goofy hot actor. While all of these characters are lovable and enjoyable in their own right, one of them is easily the most beloved out of all of them. That one being, or should I say that one,
Bing.
Chandler Bing. Chandler Bing is easily one of my favourite parts of Friends. He's just so relatable. His parents are divorced. He uses humour as a coping mechanism when he's uncomfortable.
I'm Chandler, I make jokes when I'm uncomfortable.
He's judgmental, he has a fear of commitment, he struggles with addiction. Half of these sound like they're ripped out of a DylanDoodle wiki page. These characteristics easily made Chandler one of the most relatable and likeable characters in the entire show. Now you might be asking me, that's cool and all, but what has any of this to do with what you're talking about today? Well, after the recent passing of Matthew Perry, many have been reminded of a specific episode of Friends that hits a lot harder now post his passing. That episode being Season 2, Episode 3's The One Where Mr. Heckles Dies. The episode starts off with Chandler coming in to tell everyone he broke up with a girl because she had big nostrils. While played for laughs, it goes to show the character's fear of commitment and a compulsion to look for any reason to get out of a serious relationship. The A-plot of this episode kicks off when Mr. Heckles arrives at the apartment door. You might actually recognize him for his minor role in this indie niche show called Breaking Bad. Anyway, he's complaining about the noise coming from the apartment, even though the gang are speaking at a perfectly reasonable level. And as Mr. Heckles leaves and the gang reignite the conversation on Chandler's love life, Mr. Heckles starts to hit the ceiling of his apartment to tell the gang to be quiet. This starts a banging back and forth between the gang and Mr. Heckles, until he stops banging. The gang think they've finally won this little game against Mr. Heckles, as they all begin to celebrate his silence. This then cuts to the revelation that the reason he stopped banging was actually because he died. Classic 90s sitcom humour. We then cut back to the apartment where Phoebe is yelling at Mr. Heckles to
Go into the light, Mr. Heckles!
The gang find Phoebe's antics humorous, which leads her to start mentioning all the things that she doesn't believe in that they do. She brings up evolution, which immediately alerts Ross. This starts a back and forth between the two where everything Phoebe says irritates Ross more. Ross tries to reinforce to Phoebe that evolution is fact and not something to believe in, as he uses gravity as an example. This leads to a great response from Phoebe.
Oh, okay, don't get me started on gravity.
This is where we get one of the many Chandler jokes in the series.
Uh-oh, it's Isaac Newton and he's pissed.
That knock on the door is Mr. Heckles' attorney. It's revealed that he left all of his belongings to Monica and Rachel. Monica is amazed, thinking that Heckles actually liked them this whole time. This is until it cuts to his apartment, and they learn how much of a messy state it's in. We get some more funny moments, along with Ross continuing to question Phoebe on her disbelief in evolution. Meanwhile, Chandler finds Mr. Heckles' big book of grievances, which him and Joey look through. While this is happening, Monica and Rachel find tacky lamps and clocks. Rachel wants to bring them to the apartment, but Monica is against it. Her OCD attitude towards the look of the apartment annoys Rachel, and it kinda spawns this C-plot. Joey finds Mr. Heckles' high school yearbook. This reveals to the gang that Mr. Heckles was the funny guy in his high school. Chandler notices Mr. Heckles was voted class clown and says that he was too when he was in high school. Chandler then starts complaining about the banging coming from their apartment upstairs. He begins to notice more similarities between himself and Mr. Heckles, like the fact that they both played clarinet in band. Chandler then starts banging the ceiling with the broom, just like Mr. Heckles, and jumps at the realization he's slowly acting just like him. The episode cuts back to a defeated looking Chandler as Joey mentions that Chandler has been in Mr. Heckles' apartment all night. Chandler shows Joey the pictures he found of all the women Mr. Heckles went out with each picture having a nitpick written on it. Chandler makes the comparison between himself and Mr. Heckles and says,
I'm gonna end up alone just like he did.
Joey tries to reassure Chandler, but it's to no avail. Chandler starts to worry what if he never finds somebody, and worries that maybe he did find that somebody, and he dumped them for a dumb reason. Joey tells him he'll find somebody, but Chandler questions him.
How do you know that? How?
He's worried that everyone will find someone and that he'll end up alone, and makes Joey promise that if that happens, he'll have him over for holidays. Joey reassures him that he can come over for the Super Bowl every year. This is when something clicks in Chandler and he says that he's not going to end up like this and runs off to call someone. That someone is Janice, the woman that he's broken up with multiple times throughout the series. At Central Perk, the gang question Chandler on his decision to get back with Janice, but he believes she's his last chance at love. But to the shock of the gang and myself, Janice is pregnant and married. This revelation hits Chandler quite hard. But we cut back to the apartment where Monica is desperately trying to find a way to get rid of the lamp that Rachel brought back. Ross enters with a briefcase full of artifacts to prove Phoebe wrong, but this leads Phoebe to point out how science has been wrong over time, and baits Ross into admitting that there's a tiny chance he could be wrong. After admitting this, she jokes that he's abandoned his entire belief system, which makes him leave. While getting up to leave for food, Monica knocks over Rachel's lamp while putting on her coat, breaking it. This upsets Rachel, and as Chandler enters the apartment, we get this really funny exchange between the two.
Hey Chandler, Monica just broke my seashell lamp.
Neat. I'm gonna die alone.
The girls try to reassure Chandler that he won't die alone, but he tells them that Janice was his safety net, and now that she's gone, he needs a snake. He says that every old lonely man has a hook, and his will be a pet snake.
Crazy snake man. And I'll get more snakes. Call them my babies. Kids won't walk past my place. Run away from crazy snake man. Now shut.
Monica tells him that he's got to get over this and that he won't end up alone. Kind of fitting that it's Monica telling him this actually. Chandler describes his behavior towards his relationships, to which Monica and Rachel tell him that he's perfectly described every man they've ever gone out with. They reassure him that he's not a freak, he's just a guy. Monica tells him that he's different in a good way though, that he knows what he wants, that he's ready to take risks, and most importantly, that he's willing to make a commitment. To which Chandler jumps out of his chair and says,
Whoa, don't know about that.
We cut to Mr. Heckles' apartment as the gang are almost finished clearing it out. Monica offers Rachel the weird clock for their apartment, and then Chandler bursts in, telling the gang that he has a date with a woman named Allison.
Hey, this woman Allison from work, she is great. She's pretty, she's smart, and I've been holding off asking her out in the past because she has a unusually large head.
Joey asks if you can recycle yearbooks, to which Chandler decides to take it for himself. He mentions that people have said some nice things about Mr. Heckles and someone should hold on to it. We get some nice genuine moments between the gang as they reminisce about Mr. Heckles. The gang leave and only Chandler is left. He gazes around the apartment as he picks up the broom and sets it next to the door, and he leaves us with this line.
Goodbye, Mr. Heckles. We'll try to keep it down.
The episode then ends with a gag of the date between Chandler and Allison, where all he can think about is how big her head is.
Nice smile, good dresser, big head, big head, big head.
And that's the episode. It's easily one of my favorite episodes in the series, mainly for its characterization of Chandler, but also for a plethora of other reasons. It has great characterization of the other characters too. We get to see just how much the other characters care about Chandler, but we also get to see characters like Monica and Rachel bond. We also witness characters who rarely have moments together interact, like Ross and Phoebe. But what I mainly enjoyed was the parts involving Chandler. But as I said before, recently this episode has gained a lot of attention online due to its characterization of Chandler in reference to Matthew Perry. For those of you unaware, Matthew Perry passed away on the 28th of October of this year, He came back to his home after a session of pickleball and was later found unresponsive in his hot tub by his assistant. He was later declared dead, and to say myself and the rest of his fans were devastated would be an understatement. He struggled throughout his life with substance abuse, including throughout his time on Friends, but this didn't stop him. He managed to turn his life around, he got clean, and dedicated the rest of his life to helping others that were struggling. He set up a sober living centre at his old house, he raised money to fundraise during the COVID pandemic. Overall, he's done a lot of good. The characterization of Chandler in this episode though, many have drawn parallels between him and Matthew Perry. The fact that Chandler was worried he would die alone. Many have mentioned the fact that Matthew wanted to get married and have children. I personally think this comparison is a bit insensitive. I think we should be celebrating the good he did for the world, rather than boiling him down to a character he played years ago. He didn't want to be known solely for his portrayal of Chandler Bing, so let's not boil him down to said portrayal. I've also seen a lot of people compare his death to the character of BoJack Horseman, specifically the time he almost drowned in his pool. Now, I shouldn't have to tell you why this comparison is incredibly insensitive and wrong. Comparing a man's death to that of a fictional character, along with the fact that the character of BoJack Horseman has done so many horrific things, while Matthew Perry has done so much good. It's a truly awful comparison to make. I can certainly recognize that aspects of Chandler's characterization here make it easy to compare him to the actor that plays him. But honestly, the most this comparison does for me is make watching this episode a lot sadder. But I think just knowing the tragic turn Matthew Perry's life took, it makes every episode of Friends a bit sadder. But let's just try to appreciate and remember the good memories this show has given us. In conclusion, I really like Friends. I also really like Chandler Bing as a character, and I hope Matthew Perry's work continues to inspire others and help others that are struggling. Anyways, thanks for watching this video. I'm trying to be more consistent here, so thanks for sticking with it. But you know me. Where's that laughter coming from? Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed and have yourselves a good one.